What does freedom mean in economics? Somewhere along the way, freedom was hijacked. It was narrowed, empty, made shallow. Ask an economist or a politician what freedom means, and you'll likely hear some version of this. Freedom means free markets, minimal regulation, low taxes. Maybe they'll talk about consumer choice, the freedom to buy what we want, eat what we want, work where we want. Some even defend the right to consume things that are harmful to ourselves, to others, or to the planet, because, well, it's our choice. That's the freedom to buy products that damage our health, degrade the environment, and exploit labour in faraway countries. But that's not real freedom. It's not what the word was meant to mean. And it's not the kind of freedom that can sustain a healthy economy. The dictionary definition of freedom most relevant to economics is something along the lines of liberation from slavery, restraint, or the power of another. Freedom in its essence means not being dominated, not being owned, not being controlled by other people, by institutions, by fear. That's the kind of freedom most people long for. But real freedom does have boundaries. You're free until your freedom harms someone else. This isn't a constraint, it's what makes freedom mutual, what turns it from selfishness into solidarity. So if we're serious about building a new economics, freedom has to be part of it. And not just any freedom, but a freedom rooted in ethics, responsibility and shared dignity. It must be a freedom where no one is enslaved or degraded, where no one is restrained by the unaccountable power of another, where individual liberty is real, but never bought at someone else's expense. We talk about freedom as if it's universal, but it's not. You're not free if you don't have wealth. You're not free if your choices are dictated by poverty, debt, exhaustion, or desperation. You're not free if you have to work 2 jobs and you still can't cover the rent. You're not free if every decision you make is shaped by fear, the fear of eviction, the fear of getting sick, the fear of being humiliated or left behind. You're not free if your worth is defined by your salary. But, and this is crucial, you're also not free just because you do have wealth. You might be trapped by status, trapped by performance, trapped by the fear of failing or of never being enough. You might stay in a job that pays well but leaves you numb. A job that offers money but not meaning. The capitalist economic system promises freedom, but it delivers anxiety, isolation, and insecurity to rich and poor alike. So let's be clear, freedom is not the ability to shop. Freedom is not the absence of rules. Freedom is the presence of security, of dignity, of self-direction. People talk about the efficiency of the free market as if it were a natural law like gravity, but the free market is a myth. Perfect competition never existed. And yet we design policy as if the market is a neutral arena, a place where buyers and sellers act freely and rationally without coercion. In reality, markets are systems of concentrated corporate power. As Grace Blakely argues in Vulture Capitalism, free markets are anything but free. They're highly managed systems where powerful corporations and financial institutions work hand in hand with governments, not to create freedom, but to protect their dominance. Deregulation doesn't lead to freedom. It just replaces democratic control with corporate control. Smaller government doesn't mean less control. It means unaccountable control, exercised by private interests. When people invoke freedom in an economic context, what they often mean is freedom for corporations to pollute, freedom for landlords to raise rents, freedom for billionaires to avoid taxes, freedom for employers to exploit workers. So what does real economic freedom look like? It's not every man for himself. It's not let the market decide. It's not sink or swim. Real freedom is the power to shape your own life within a community that has your back. To be truly free, people need a safe place to rest, to sleep, a body that's cared for with good health and nutrition, a voice that's heard, a future that feels possible, a community that protects you from fear and domination. Freedom is not freedom if survival is always at stake. Freedom is not freedom if you have no say in the forces that govern your life. Real freedom requires economic security, political voice, and human dignity. Most people are not free under capitalism. They're enslaved to a system that tells them that they're never enough, that constantly threatens to knock them down, that keeps them in a state of anxious obedience. But the answer isn't just to replace capitalism with the authoritarian communism of the 20th century. Yes, I have a lot of sympathy for communist and Marxist ideas. And yes, capitalism deserves a radical alternative. But if communist ideas are going to play a role in that alternative, they have to be completely reimagined. Because communism without freedom is not liberation, it's just another kind of cage. It might redistribute goods, but it denies something just as vital, human agency. Any serious new economic model must put freedom of the individual at the centre. This means local decision-making, community control, self-determination. Freedom means people having a real say in the decisions that shape their lives. That's not possible under authoritarian government, but it's not possible under corporate rule either. Rejecting capitalist myths does not mean embracing authoritarian alternatives. Real freedom grows from the ground up. One of my most basic propositions is that you are the economy. The economy is not an abstract machine. It's not a stock market. It's not a GDP figure. It's made of us, of our work, of our decisions, our time, our energy, our relationships. So if you are the economy, then you must be free, or the economy will never serve life. That's why the future does not belong to corporate giants. It doesn't belong to centralized bureaucracies. It belongs to local, participatory, human-scale economies. Economies where we can be people, not cogs, citizens, not consumers, creators, not competitors. Freedom isn't just about escape. It's not just the absence of oppression. Freedom is presence. It's the ability to rest without guilt, to create without fear, to love, to learn, to contribute. Not because you must, but because you can. Real freedom unlocks the higher needs of the human spirit, what Maslow called self-actualization. It's not just the freedom to survive, it's the freedom to become. An economy based on real freedom would unleash creativity, connection, care, not endless hustle and survival games. But even this, economic freedom, political voice, human dignity, it's not enough. Because at the deepest level, freedom is spiritual. It's the freedom to know yourself, to live in alignment with your values, to act without fear or shame, to be more than a role, a label, a function. Spiritual freedom means you're not ruled by ego or status or consumption. It means you can live in service, not in servitude. It means you're no longer a prisoner of what others think, or what the market demands, or what the system defines as success. This is the deepest kind of freedom, the one that no economic model can give you, but that every economic model should protect. It's the kind of freedom where joy doesn't come from what you earn, but from what you contribute, where identity isn't built from status, but from connection to yourself, to others, to life. A new economics must honour this, because spiritual freedom is the soil in which all other freedoms grow. And it's something accessible to you now. You don't have to wait. We need to reclaim the word freedom, not just from the right, not just from the market, but from the narrow, fearful vision of human beings that's dominated economics for too long. Freedom is not shopping. Freedom is not surviving. Freedom is living fully, securely, joyfully. Freedom is local. Freedom is participatory. Freedom is spiritual. Let's build an economy that gives us that. An economy where no one is disposable, where no one is coerced by fear, where everyone has the space to create a life of meaning. Freedom is not what they told us. It's not found in the market. It's about meaning, about living our fullest possibilities. Freedom is a critical building block for the new economics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.